So Amru Madul, or I guess y'all may probably know him as Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit. He is the fit of Fresh and Fit. Is one of these individuals who early on I told myself I would not give any sort of shine, right? I wouldn't make a platform for individuals who I believe already get enough exposure anyway for all the wrong reasons, and that I wasn't doing anything besides allowing for them to create a larger audience and essentially suck more young men into this unescapable vortex of perpetual hatred, resentment, and bitterness. And so, for a while, I ignored much of the things that were coming out and being said by individuals like Amru Fadl, until we started getting into the place that we now are, where on a daily basis, I am seeing real life dangerous consequences from the things that guys like this are saying. And I then had to accept that there's no way that I can just sit back and watch it or, listen to this happening without saying anything about it, especially if I can do something about it. And I believe that if you're given a platform, the opportunity to speak, you have an obligation to the people. You actually have a duty. You have a responsibility. These are words I used to be terrified of. I used to believe that you had no sense of duty to anybody besides yourself, that sort of self-absorbed mentality. But the truth was, I was always responsible to call this sort of evil out for exactly what it is. Now, we're going to get into this video in a little bit, and Fadil is about to find out. I think for the first time in a very long time, he's about to be confronted in a way that he hasn't been by, ironically, a Jew, right? An IDF soldier. So we're going to get into that, but I wanted to give a little more, of a context of why it matters to get into these sorts of individuals. Now, yesterday, I just finished off the docu-series, I guess you would call it, on Waco. I don't know. Well, it's an actual series. So we'll just call it that. But it's titled Waco, and it is about David Koresh and his cult. And as much as I took away from that, one thing that I zoned in on, because I'm fascinated about cults, the development of them, why people fall into them as much as, these quote unquote charismatic leaders themselves and their ideology and, their motivations and things of that nature. But one thing I fixated on was how emotion will always trump, no pun intended, will always trump facts, logic, and reason. As human beings, when we are in an emotionally vulnerable state, it does not matter how intelligent we are. You had members of that cult following this so-called Messiah figure that was David Koresh, who were doctors, who were teachers, professors, PhDs, etc. Maybe they're lawyers, in this cult, definitely in the Osho cult. If you watch Wild Wild Country, there was a lawyer who was one of the most devoted individuals, men of reason and logic who can fall so deeply into this emotional state. And so when you look at a Fresh and Fit, they've built their entire platform on emotionally wounded men. That's really the core of their audience, those who have the stick-to-itiveness. There are those who go into it because you want personal development, etc., but you don't become this cult member, right? You're not part of the cult of personality, like a young man, let's say, who's been cheated on or who's never had any sort of success with women. And so he's looking for that scapegoat, and he finds it through ideologies like the red pill. Now, what we're getting into has nothing to do with the red pill specifically, but it's to understand the individual behind this. Is that there is already this cult-like mentality, and these are individuals who are able to capture a mind of another individual in this way. And so it's important for us to understand that in order for us to not trivialize these people, because I did that, right? Oh, that's just a comedian, right? Theo Vaughn, he's just a jokester, right? He's a court jester. He calls himself mentally retarded. So, there's nothing to worry about there. But then all of a sudden he starts spreading lies, not just misinformation, blatant lies that have been refuted and debunked. He's spreading Hamas propaganda, but under the guise of comedy, he's able to carry that message and people receive it without any sort of reasonable thought. when you have a person like Amarin Gaines, Amru Fadil, it's the exact same phenomenon, just in a different expression. And so it makes them the most dangerous. Like when you know somebody is dangerous, you have your eye on them. When you think somebody's just a joke and you write them off, that's when they're the most dangerous because you're paying no attention. So that being said, we're going to get into this video. And as much as, I would like to explore the context of it and the facts that are spoken of here, I think it's the most important to really look at who are these bad faith actors that I believe have, as Jordan Peterson would say, these kind of psychopathic tendencies that are looking to usurp power and control, to understand the character of who these people are. That's why I get into Candace the way I do. I get into Tucker, etc. You must understand that these people are not just flawed like the rest of us are flawed in character, but they're deceitful on purpose. So let's go ahead and get into it.
It's an interesting genocide, right? When the population actually grows, right? How does that work? Because in general, when a genocide happens, the population gets, lessened. Over here, the population actually grew. Also, in the stats that you're citing, which is from the Hamas Health Ministry.
Which figure exactly?
The figure of the amount of people who died.
Okay, which number?
Which number would you like?
You weren't listening. Which number?
Which number would you like?
No, I'm asking you, which number are you disputing?
Any number that you want.
How many do you think died then?
I think it was about 40,000.
You think about 40,000?
Yes.
Okay, let's go with 40,000.
Yes.
It's more, but that's fine. We'll go 40,000.
However much you want. You could use 50, 60,
No,
whatever.
let's use 40.
100.
That's fine.
It's
That's
fine.
Now, let me ask you, how many of those 40,000 were Hamas?
Quite a few. More than half.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's say maybe...
More than half.
Okay, what do you estimate?
Let's say 21.
Okay.
Let's just use it on a low end. I think it was higher.
And this is something again, it's contextual, but it's not being spoken of, and it oftentimes is not. This entire conversation should not even have to exist if we look at just the facts of why there is this war in the first place. On October 7th, innocent people were massacred, stripped from their families, R-worded, assaulted, etc., right? For no other reason than they are not Muslims. That's really that's the story, the end. The aftermath of that is exclusively on the perpetrator, on Hamas, who is supported by the so-called Palestinians. And I just did a video on Osama bin Laden, and even, back a few decades ago, he was speaking of how he stands with his brothers and sisters in Palestine and Hamas. So these are the types of individuals who are aligned with the Al-Qaedas, the Hezbollahs, the ISISs of the world, etc. And the people stand behind these movements. They put them into these positions of power. So we want to have an argument about how many people died. It could be 100,000, 200, 500, 600,000 people. And it's all going to be because of Hamas. The end.
But let's say 21.
Okay.
Do you know how urban warfare works?
Oh, so here's, okay.
I
Let's
was a
address
soldier. I know how urban warfare works.
That's great.
In urban warfare, there's a higher percentage of civilian casualties in every single instance that there was urban warfare. There was a higher percentage of individual casualties than 1-to-1. In this, there's a miraculous 1-to-1. In addition to that, one more point, if you will have it.
Go ahead.
One more point is that there so happens to be no deaths from old ages accounted into this. And in a population of 2 million, we have a perfect statistic.
Or sickness, dis-ease, like the kid that they were using as a poster child for the hunger in Hamas, or the Freudian slip, the hunger in Gaza. Turned out that he had a muscular disease. And that's the image that they were using. Shameless stuff. Takia, you can lie as long as it is in defense of Islam.
Of the amount of deaths expected from old ages. But go ahead. You could spew whatever it is you want to spew. I will tell you one last thing before I end, is that Israel will stand strong, regardless of if the whole entire world, all 212 countries stand and tell us that we're wrong, we will stand and survive. But you could go ahead and you could tell us about the genocide where the population expanded. You could tell us about the genocide where somehow there was a one-to-one, where this is the most moral army in the world. Israel did not have to send out text messages and phone calls to the areas that they're bombing. They do not need to evacuate the population.
When you say 1-to-1 ratio, do you mean civilian to Hamas fighter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, every single civilian death in war is unfortunate, and it's a sad occurrence. But this is actually unprecedented in the history of urban warfare.
Again, I just have to inject myself in here. Hamas does not consider casualties. Neither did Al-Qaeda. Neither does any of these jihadist organizations. There is no casualty in their holy war. There is only the martyr and the infidel. That's why they're willing to detonate an individual who is then seen as a martyr, and those innocent people whose lives he takes are seen as infidels and nothing more. So we want to talk about casualties, right? These are people who see no casualties. That's why they're willing to use their own people as human shields. They are martyrs now. The mothers who sacrifice their own children and cry out to Allah, claiming that this was their purpose. Think about the sort of mentality of an individual who would have their children go off. If you knew, just in Western militaries, because those are the only ones, American military, those are the only ones I have any sort of understanding in, the sort of heartbreak that comes from a mother losing her son or daughter in war, a father losing their son or daughter in war. We honor them, we thank them, but we mourn for them. We don't celebrate that this person has lost their life. But we're dealing with an ideology that celebrates the death. They say, you love life, we love death. That's why we will.
Here, the United States and its allies have acted a lot more irrationally, quote unquote. I think it was rational, but a lot less. The ratio was a lot worse when it comes to this type of war, where you're fighting in a built-up zone against combatants that are hiding behind the civilian populations as a matter of policy, against combatants who are sworn to your destruction regardless of the price. This is a very, very simple equation. Whoever comes to you, our Bible says, wake up and kill first. Now, anybody could say whatever it is they want. I could stand here against the entire world, all 6, 7 billion, 8 billion of them, and we will stand strong until the last man jack. That might hurt to an anti-Israel guy, but we will do it. And I will be there with them.
This is exactly what it feels like at this moment. I'm actually glad he made that statement, even though it's going to probably be used against him and, you know, things of that nature. Oh, well, it's just because you're a Zionist and you know. But the reason I feel like that's of absolute importance is because that's exactly how I feel. I feel, especially from the context of a non-Jew, right? You have people around you who claim to be Christians, and in the same breath, they defend the actions of the little mustache man. You have people claiming to be Christians and neo-schmazis at the same time. And they will argue with you for hours on end about how Christ would stand with them, the Aryan Brotherhood, the New Age schmazi, that Christ, a rabbi, this is according to the Bible, by the way, the scripture, He was referred to as the rabbi by his followers, 12 Jewish men. You read about the significance of Israel. I didn't say Bibi Netanyahu. I just said Israel because that's what it says in those scriptures. And you interact with these so-called Christians who are telling you to your face that you are standing with evil. You, the person who's actually going in accordance to those scriptures, who's actually living in accordance with what that word says. Bless them and I will bless you. And it says what? The Lord is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, right? Christ, a Jew. Again, they make 1,000 excuses. You have the so-called, the black Israelites who want to make it about them. Then you have the so-called Christians, the Candaces of the world, who want to eradicate that from even being a thing still, like the replacement theology. They want to erase that from the scripture. You have every side playing, but in all of that, the truth is still going to stand. It's beyond the facts. Again, that's why I said I'm going to get into the facts of what he actually said, etc. But more importantly, there's the nuances, which is when it's all said and done, are you with the evil or are you with the good? Do you stand with jihad or not? Because when you're standing in opposition to Israel in this fight, the one we're talking about is contextual, right? This fight. They always want to bring up, well, what about all the other wars they started? Name me one war that was actually started by Israel. One of them. You can give me conspiracies, right? You can tell me that they've pulled America into every war. Every war America fought was by Israel. Even 1776. 1863. It was the Jew. Okay. September the 11th, the Jew, right? You can give me conspiracy. You can give me, or we need a different word for that, right? Because yes, the word conspiracy technically only means, when two or more come into agreement about something behind closed doors, or, they conspire. They come together with a plan. Okay. I'll say the theorists. Those who want to go off of the fairy tale. You can sell me fairy tales all day, but we have the reality looking right in front of us. I can give you the footage from October 7th, and I can tell you why that happened. I can tell you why they did it from the people who did it. The same people who worship Amru Fadl, Myron Gaines, and individuals like him, the same people who worship these sorts of individuals are the same ones who cannot present you a single piece of factual evidence coming from the people themselves, yet they will ignore the ones who are crying it out from the mountaintops. Why will Fadl never bring up the fact that Iran's current regime, the Ayatollah Khomeini, has been saying from the very time that he had his coup, death to us? Why is that never brought up? Why is it never brought up that Hamas believes in our eradication as much as the Jewish people's? You see, there is a true conspiracy, I guess you would say, a coming together of everybody who simply holds a hatred for the Jew, everybody who has the Jew as the scapegoat, right? That's who's coming together. That's the coalition, and that's the only thing that they have in common. I'm not the first one to articulate that, but essentially it is something that needs to be pointed to. Is you have the likes of, a Candace and a Nick Fuentes, who came at odds when they finally sat across from each other because they agree on mostly damn near nothing except for this. Their obsession with Israel, the obsession with the Jew. And when I read scripture, and when I remember back to scripture that I was raised upon, I think to myself, wait, this was talked about. that there would forever be this enmity, this hatred. There would be the world to turn against these people. I remember narrow is the way. And I know it's not just in that context, but narrow is the way of those who actually obey, who actually follow this doctrine, not those who know it or think about it or claim to be such. I remember when it said that there were some who will be called, hey, I don't know you. Part from me. You child of iniquity. Who are you? But I called on your name. You didn't know me. Those are going to be the same people. It's going to be a rude awakening for these folks. I'm talking now to the Christian folk who claim themselves to be Christian but can't stand on their scripture around this. They want to make up all sorts of fantasies. You're deluded. You're buying into the lie. And I am afraid that you will come to the conclusion of your life on the wrong side. But as we're here on earth, the sort of danger that this type of individual is pushing, I just know for me personally, I'm obliged every morning to wake up and to do what I do. I can't tell you why beyond I am compelled in the same way you're compelled to eat every day, drink water, bathe. I can no longer just watch this going by. I can't listen to people just lying and lying to others and misleading them. And seeing people falling into the very same trap that led to a September the 11th. Being blindsided. And I fear that it will take for so much worse to happen for people to finally wake up. And I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be that. But I see where it's going. In the time of Osama's reign, in the time of a Saddam and all these sorts of individuals, Europe wasn't at the place that it is now. You didn't have England turning into Englandistan, but now it is. The United States, go into Minneapolis and see if it doesn't look like little Afghanistan or little Somalia over there. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
Aquarius. Where? I've been up for hours, I've been up for days, yeah. Staring at the ceiling, I've been counting strays, yeah. I've been in my feelings, I've been out of mind. I've been getting visions of the other kind. Yeah, I've been up for weeks. I'm in the count of blessings over count of sheep. I can never be the type to limit when it comes to me. I used to be the pleaser for the people I ain't even need.